Recording in progress.
Good evening. I'd like to call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Finance for Monday, June 20th, 2022 to order. Prior to beginning with the agenda, just want to wish my colleagues and the viewing public, hopefully they had a wonderful Juneteenth, today being a fairly new holiday. So I know my day didn't change too much, but many did. So I think next year when we do the agenda, we'll be a little bit more aware that this is actually a holiday. So we will reflect that at that time. Item number 1, public forum. Anybody wishing to address the Board of Finance in public forum? Seeing none. Item number 2, approve minutes of regular meeting minutes of May 16th, 2022. Do we hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Corrections, edits. I did have a couple, very small ones.
There's one in just the board members.
Megan, go. Yep.
Jeff was here, and it doesn't list him
Um,
right at the top.
Yeah. Yeah, Jeff and Bob were both not present. And also there's a miscellaneous initial for Jonathan Trotta of Z.
Your new name, Jonathan. Jonathan Z.
Jonathan Z. Trotta.
Pretty hip, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree.
Z, Q, whatever you prefer. Yes, thank you, Megan. That was one. On page, what page is 5, in the middle on the vote, again, in favor, Hartman, Bob was not here to be in favor, but I'm sure he would have been.
Would have been.
And there was another real minor one that I saw. Under item number 6, still on page 5, second paragraph, Mr. Hoey said there was already, there was an is already, was already. So just eliminate is already. Anything further?
I just have one change at the top
Sure.
of all the pages. There's a holdover from the March meeting, so it should just say the regular minutes of the May 16th.
Oh,
Yeah.
date.
Oh, you're right.
That was all I had.
Okay. Anything further? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I'm abstaining.
Stayed.
Okay. Let's see, going to item number 3, correspondence, standing building committee minutes. We have both May and June in front of us tonight. Anybody have, I did send a message, by the way, to the chairman. Unfortunately, it was a little bit late. Usually I send it a day before. I sent it more like 2 hours before the link. So I don't know if he'd be able to join us anyway. But if we have any questions for Mr. DeMeo and the Standing Building Committee, we have 2 sets of meeting minutes. Anybody have anything? Going once. Twice? Okay. But
The only thing I would note is that, with the end of the school year is upon us, so it seems to me, looking at the minutes, that the Board of Ed is lined up to the extent it can, a lot of the equipment and parts ready to get started on the summer renovations, which is always good to see. So they're really taking advantage of the opportunity.
which is not prevalent right now.
Right.
Having equipment and materials to do summer work.
Right.
So obviously it was done in plenty of time planning. So that's good news from the contractors that are doing the work.
Yep.
Yep, good point. Okay, if nothing further. Item number 2, pension committee minutes, monthly report. Pension minutes for May 18th. I know there was quite a bit of discussion on COLA for pensioners, and no decisions were made. They're waiting for more information for the next meeting.
At their most
Or
recent,
it just probably just happened.
at their most recent meeting, which
Yep.
was last Wednesday.
Thank you. Okay.
The board voted unanimously to not recommend cost of living adjustment for the police department, the police union only. There was significant discussion about whether or not the consideration should be for all of the unions. And I think Bob's nodding his head. That's sort of been the conversation we've tried to have for the last several iterations, and that was not met with much agreement, should I say?
Yeah, I can't put it much better. It is exactly that. It's the one group, and the discussion begins to come around. Well, there've been pensions are given to town employees for as many years as that, and they're the only group, and it opens the door to, well, if you look at one group, you should look at everyone. Therefore, the pension committee decided to treat everybody with equity and made the recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay. And that'll be reflected in, obviously, next month's minutes.
Just to comment on our experience this month, I don't know if anyone's ever heard this, but sell in May and go away.
Well, there used to be an axiom that you made all your money in the first quarter of the year, and then you wrote it out, but I don't know whether that's still the case. But I'm assuming everybody's portfolio up here has gotten banged in the last 6 months, so since the Ukraine war started. So, well, but guess what? We'll rebound. This is not the first time we've had these kind of hits in the pension. Bob was on the pension committee for a number of years.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with me. The pension committee resisted the temptation over the years. I'll always say this: it's one of the best pension funds run in the state of Connecticut, and one of the reasons is why it's never fallen to the temptation to time the market. So it's become a classic combination of equities and fixed income or bonds. And unlike some other pension programs that have gone more into equities, which are more volatile, we didn't. At present, of course, the bond market's taking everything. There's nothing that's immune,
Right.
but you'd rather be with our portion of fixed income than
Agreed.
some others. So things, it's silly to say things, panaceas like things will stabilize and we'll all come back and all that stuff. But this is an extraordinary correction,
Yeah.
and I think we're well managed.
Right. One of the interesting factors is if you look at our target allocations in the fixed income, the equities, and then the third bucket, which I can never remember, we have target allocations. And what has happened is, despite what's going on in the market, we've stayed relatively close
We haven't
to those
broken limits.
allocation
Yeah,
benchmarks.
Typically, you'll start to blur the lines or break out of categories because of the underlying valuations, and it's not really happening. So, which is a fairly healthy sign.
Yeah.
So is the pension and the medical something that they would bring into the next union negotiation?
I'm not sure. The pensions, the only organization that's looking to reinstitute pensions is not ironically, is police department, because, and actually the management has suggested we might want to look at it because the out-migration is occasionally to places where they have typical pensions or defined benefit plans. But there is a significant difference in where you're going to go to work. Most of those are in the major urban areas. They're not. Although Branford, in fairness, Branford just reinstituted a defined benefit plan for their police department. But typically, what the exodus we've seen is either people moving closer to home, or they're moving to a defined pension plan. But that comes at a cost.
If I may interrupt, I'm sorry because I'm staring at the big screen. Mr. DeMayo is in the waiting room.
Oh, well done, well done.
Thank you for that.
But in terms of the balance of the contracts, I would be hard pressed to say that that's going to be an issue other than the police department at this point, because they're consistently the only ones across the state that is an issue for. And the landscape has changed dramatically. All right, you may recall that the police department was the only union that had full retirement benefits when they reached 20 years of service. There was no other union in town that had that same level of benefits. That also meant they were entitled to health care benefits through to 65.
Thank you. As I see Mr. DeMeo, he was on and then he just popped off. So we'll continue on when we see him again. We'll inform him that we went past his agenda item, but if anybody has still any questions, we'll bring them in on that. Item number 3 is the OPEB board minutes, monthly report. Anything on that, on those minutes or the report? Okay. Therefore, we will go on to item number 4, review and accept the report of expenditures for the Board of Education for May 2022. Linda? Yeah, come on up. You don't have a mic in front of you like the other side, so.
Good evening, Linda.
Good evening, everybody. That's wrong.
Good evening.
I forgot what I'm supposed to be doing up here.
Well, good evening.
Good evening. So for the month of May, our expenditures were $4,447,141.60. We are trending along where we have been as compared to the last 2 years. The big news for May was we did get our final excess cost payment. It came in at 80%, which is surprisingly good. I was not expecting it to be that high, so that was good news.
If you don't mind my asking, what would you have expected?
I was originally thinking we were going to be in like the mid-70s. When we got our initial payment and it was above 80, I went up to like 77 in my projections because I didn't think it would still be that high. I was surprised when it came in at 80. So for the excess cost, it's actually the last 2 years we've been at 80%. Prior to that, we were in the 70s. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Any explanation for that, or just?
I
I mean,
they
do they
increase
give
the
you any? Did they say why it's coming up?
They did increase the funding, and then it's based on what everybody files for claims, during the certain periods. So the claims must have been down, and the pot of money was up. So we all got a little bit more.
Great.
So yeah, it's definitely good news.
Yeah.
Definitely good news. There really wasn't much else. Mr. Petra, who was the reviewer this month, he even said that it was a very boring report to read, that there wasn't anything too exciting. So I will answer any questions that you have, or try to.
Yeah, I mean, the other good news, I think, was based on the tuition report.
Yes.
And I looked, and last month we were at 190 under budget, and now it's showing almost double,
Right.
basically 350.
So the increase in the excess cost accounted for about 70,000, 75,000 of that increase. The rest of it is refining costs, and a little bit of changes here and there. As we get closer to the end of the year and I can actually see where some of the bills are coming in,
Right,
I can get a better idea what the estimate is.
right. Definitely good news.
Yes.
I usually forget about the tuition report, so this time I printed it out and I made a note to bring it up.
And actually, there is one other piece of good news. At this point, we are projecting that we will end the year with a little bit of a surplus. So we won't be coming back to ask for money, which we never want to have to actually do. Somewhere right now, it's about 350, or at least that's what I told the Board of Ed. And then immediately came back to the office next day and was greeted with a $100,000 expenditure from Mr. Gurnham for the sprinkler system in the attic of $595.
Okay.
So, we're now down to about $250. It's going to change. It
Yeah.
changes daily at this
It's
point.
going to be fluid until
Right.
even after June 30th.
But I'm definitely not concerned about ending the year in a deficit. We definitely will have
Okay,
some surplus at the end of the year.
great. Jeff?
No, I just wanted to, just to go back to the tuition line.
Yeah.
I think it's great that we're running a surplus, but, and the district does a good job of trying to estimate. I think the thing that jumps out to me is that the actual student count is down by 3 students from what was projected when we did the budgeting. That
Yes.
I think has a lot to do with where we are. I mean, that number we've seen in years past could easily have been 34 when we budgeted for 31. So, I mean, don't get me wrong,
No,
I'm not
no.
complaining, and it's a tough crystal ball to look into and gaze at what the numbers are going to be. But I think it's great that we're as close to the target as we are. So.
Yeah, I went back and double checked the count just because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing something because it was different from
Yeah.
the budget, but
No, it's
That's
an
what it is
incredibly
right now.
volatile number.
Yeah.
It's just hard to get it close.
Anything else, Board of Education? On the warrants, minutes?
I know I've asked this a number of months. Substitute teachers continues to run high. I have
Yes.
to imagine it's, part of it is just, it's been a tough
Yeah,
2
tough
years, and this year, from anecdotal evidence that I've heard,
Yes.
has also been a tough year, even though it's largely been in school and mask-free for a significant portion of the year.
I was supposed to meet with one of the principals on Friday, and she called me and she said, I have 6 teachers out, I have 3 paras out, I'm scrambling to cover classrooms, can we change our meeting? And I was obviously, absolutely, but, you know, it's just, we need substitutes, we have to
Yeah.
bring them in, so.
Yeah.
Of course, the eye is always drawn to things at 7 figures, $1 million and up. And toward the end of the report, the special education buses. Now, of course, the 2 previous years, the expenses were lower, which probably helped a great deal. And we're up, and it looks like, and of course, it helped in previous years. And we're up to 87, 88%, so which kind of reflects a nice recovery. And that obviously, if you're projecting a surplus, it's not hurting the bottom line. It's more of an observation than anything else, but.
It's another tough line to
Yeah,
estimate.
yeah.
And the transportation costs are not inexpensive at all.
Nope, especially now.
Which reminds me, when did we lock in our fuel prices for?
Last November.
November, yeah, November just,
Let's see what happens this November.
Yeah, they're gonna want revenge.
There may be an adjustment, I would imagine.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman? if
Yes.
I could for a moment?
Please.
As you look at year-to-date revenue on tuition, nearly a third of our expenditures to date has come back in reimbursements, which talks to the severity of the cases that we are actually being reimbursed on. The legislature, in its infinite wisdom, is starting to tinker with the reimbursement formula, and I know Linda knows this very well. And what they've started to do was to put a tiered system. They want to put a tiered system in place, so the priority districts get more of a higher percentage than the non-priority districts. I am on record with CCM, with the Council of Governments, that introducing a wealth index for special ed costs, for tuition, for special ed, especially ECS, is completely antithetical to fair treatment. None of us, no community in the state of Connecticut, has the ability to price shop for the services that we're talking about. There are a limited number of service providers who charge us the same amount of money as they charge New Haven. Therefore, applying a weighted index or wealth index to special ed reimbursement, I think, is unconscionable. And I have made that point on numerous occasions. CCM, I happen to sit on the executive board of CCM. I've been given assurances that in the upcoming legislative session, that will be a primary, one of the primary points of emphasis for our lobbying efforts, because it is, in my mind's eye, it is grossly unfair. I'm a redistributive tax policy guy from the time I was old enough to know what that meant. But when you have expenses that we have no control over, as opposed to what we decide to pay our teachers or what courses we offer, so I can understand on the traditional ECS formula, we don't get what everybody else gets. We don't get what New Haven gets or Torrington gets. But in terms of special ed tuition costs, we're all in the same boat.
Excellent point.
The,
And thank you for lobbying.
But no, I'm not alone.
No, I know, there's a lot of
The
people.
Connecticut Association of School Business Officials has been
Right.
doing the same thing, and they've been working with some of those same groups to lobby against it.
Hopefully there'll be some change then.
Yes.
Great.
The other aspect of it is, I mean, we've taken, in Guilford, we've taken substantial steps to try and keep more of our students in district.
Exactly.
And because we offer the quality of services we do, I have to imagine that it makes our district attractive for a parent with special needs. So we may be getting it at a population basis being what they are, there's going to be variance. But if you're an attractive district for students with, or families with students with special needs, your burden may be heavier than it might be for another one.
It's not showing up in tuition anymore, it's showing up in special services, right?
Or transportation.
Or transportation, you're right. Good point.
Anything further? Okay. If nothing else, then I will entertain a motion to accept the report of expenditures, excuse me, for the Board of Education for May 2022 in the amount of $4,447,141.60.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions or recusals? Okay.
Thank you.
Linda, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Item number 5, review and approve the report of expenditures for town government for May 2022. Mary Jane is virtual this evening. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to be from my home this evening.
No problem.
I'd like to start with revenues.
Okay.
So as of the end of May, we are 100.6% received of our revenues. I want to, first of all, bring your attention to the finance line, whereas last month I promised I was hoping to go over my budget. And we finally have through May with one more month to go, so I can breathe a little sigh of relief there. All of the other departments are also over their revenue budget, except the two that we have spoken of each month, which is the police and park and rec. The Board of Education line is the ECS. We will be expecting that final payment in the month of June as well. So our revenues are well on track.
Okay. Any questions on revenue? Okay. We will move on to expenditures.
We have a few specific items to go over on the expenditures. Some overages we've already discussed, so I won't touch on them again unless you have additional information or additional questions, I mean. The Registrar of Voters budget went over this month. If you look at all of the detail in the back of the report, you'll see that that's directly related to poll workers. Under natural resources, that went over this month. We are showing a $36,000 purchase order that we'll be looking to close out, which will help that line item. But again, if you look at the detail, you'll see that that is mainly due to tree maintenance for this year, and that purchase order is for tree maintenance as well. The next line item I want to discuss is the golf course. The golf course has gone over budget a slight amount. That is due to 6 large oak trees that fell on the property, and to have them removed cost us just shy of $10,000. So that caused that line item, that budget to go over. The next is the fire department. So I've been working very closely with the chief, the deputy chief, and Captain Haverkamp regarding the fire department budget. We are looking at all of the grants, all of the COVID-related expenses, specifically vaccine clinics and such that we are looking to offset this budget for. But the main reason we're having trouble with this budget is due to two long-term outages. One is a long-term military deployment, someone that has been out almost the entire year, that impacts our budget and causes us to replace his time with someone else. A portion of his salary will be returned to us once he's done with his deployment, because anything excess that the military has provided will come back to us. The second is a long-term medical outage. Again, we need to use replacements for both of those. And since June, we estimate that cost is $236,000 to cover those two. So we are paying their salaries, plus we are covering them as a replacement. In addition, we are, like I mentioned, we are expecting some small reimbursements for a couple of grants. We also had 4 retirements that are impacting the budget. Those are the notes I received and spoke to the chiefs. Also, First Selectman noted this morning that we did have a large expense for vehicle repair that impacted the budget as well. So just wanted to make sure that you were aware that we are very aware that this budget is over this year, and we are working diligently to bring that overage down to as low amount as possible.
Okay, thank you.
All the other line items we've talked about month over month, so unless you have any other questions on expenditures, that's all I have for you this evening.
I had one question about legal. It looks fantastic. That was because we changed the way we were contracting for legal? That was
Yeah, we largely, we changed the structure from an in-house legal individual. I have a suspicion that all the bills aren't in yet, and there are probably some in arrears, excuse me. And it is good news, there's no question about it. But the end of the year will probably be a number that's a little greater than that and less savings, but it is as a result of the way we restructured how we did legal stuff. And we've come through, we didn't have any contracts to negotiate this year, which we knew going in, so we budgeted lower. But we had one that we had a contingency for. But also, I think Mary Jane will tell you, we had some carryover funds from last year that we may have utilized as well.
okay. That looks good.
I know the other two in expenditures was Youth and Family Services and Capital. But again, like you mentioned, we talked about those in the last couple months, and at least on Youth and Family Services, we know that the needs are greater, so that means the expenses are more, but it's being offset on the revenues.
No, some of it is.
Some of
We,
it.
as you may recall, we're using some American Rescue Plan funds for additional,
Oh, yeah.
for additional
That's
staffing
right.
there. So, and Mary Jane, have you applied the offsets with the American Rescue Plan funds to Youth and Family Services salaries line items yet?
Yes, we have, but the other our regular grants that we get on an annual basis have not yet been applied, so those are still waiting.
I know when typically when teachers retire and we hire replacement teachers, there's a savings in the salary. Will we see something similar with the retirements in the fire department when we bring new hires in, or are they like a
Yes.
world language or math teacher where we're not going to
Yes, we
realize?
will. They come in at an entry level. It's pretty well defined by the contract. And, you know, the seniority counts. So those who are eligible for retirement are typically at the high end of the scale, and we get to bring them in at a lower level. So the answer is
Yeah,
yes.
so the reason that the retirements can often affect our budget is because we bring people in that need to be trained, they go off on training. And then we have to replace them while they're out training. So that's how that can affect the budget.
Similar with the police department, they encounter the same problem. Yep.
Correct.
One of the strategies of the police department is to get transfers from other departments, so they don't have to go up to the academy, and then they spent a shorter amount of time in the field doing the local training. And we've been pretty successful with that. Although I look at the police department and they all look like younger than my kids. So. That's all the new hires anyway. A lot of them.
Look like my kids' younger siblings.
Anything else on expenditures? We'll go to warrants. Special fund? Special weekly fund? Special fund. I did have just a question on the second line item, which is for the training facility, fire department. Is that, just, again, this is more of a remind me, how many, is that the first payment for that training facility?
Deferring to Mary Jane.
This is for town bond, fire department training facility. The training.
I really don't remember off the top of my head, but I can get you that answer.
Yeah, I just was wondering if that's the first payment, and if not, or even if it is, how many more payments are we expecting on that bond? Again, we could probably, I could look at a capital bond and see what the number is, but it's just.
It's okay. I might not know how many payments, but I can tell you what the balance left on that bond is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about the top one. It says Shipman Fire Equipment is the vendor, and a pretty substantial amount for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. I'm just curious a little bit more in detail what that was for.
If you go all the way to the right.
Those are,
Yeah.
somebody else answering that?
Yeah, I am. If you go to the right invoice description, those are the air packs, which need to be replaced every, on a regular cycle. Those are the air packs they wear when they go into a fire.
Oh, those are pretty pricey, huh?
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Mary Jane, we can barely hear you.
I know, I have to say I'm having a lot of trouble hearing you guys too, and I can barely hear Matt at all. So I don't even know really when he's talking. So I don't know what's wrong with the audio back and forth today.
Can you hear me now? Does it sound like a cellular phone?
Can you hear me now?
I was actually being sarcastic. We can hear you very clearly, very loudly.
I guess that means we have to talk louder.
Yeah.
Well, no, either that or fine tune the microphones in the room so that we can pick it up for those who are in the hybrid portion of the meeting, so.
Yeah, so I don't know if Matt moved the microphone, but I heard that much clearer than before, so.
I did, I was being a wise ass.
So I do have one question on the third item, and just in case anybody asks me.
Flashback.
This is a reimbursement, I take it? This is the money, this comes from us to the supplier, but the funds come from outside our coffers? Yeah. Good to point out.
I think, yes, and we had the pleasure of meeting the individuals who were responsible and
Yep.
who still wish to remain anonymous, but
Yep.
it was delightful to actually meet them.
I've heard nothing but positive comments about the splash pad, so.
We had a couple of tweaks and adjustments that need to be made, but that a project like that absolutely is to be expected. But from everything I've heard, it has been well received,
Yeah.
including a friend of mine who was opposed to it originally, but since has grandchildren and has taken the grandchildren to the facility and thinks it's the absolutely most wonderful thing we could have done.
Like a reformed smoker. Everybody needs to stop smoking now.
Weekly warrants? Any warrants, questions? And finally, medical. At this particular moment, we're running a slight deficit at this particular moment.
But last month's claims were above the average.
Yeah, yes, they were. And our stop loss has gone to 40% of the premium. It was 31 last month, so. Probably won't hit that 70% mark, as we could see, but it's always, it always fluctuates every year, so.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask Mary Jane to give you the number of cases that have exceeded, 75,000 and how many have
It
exceeded
is actually on here, it
150?
says 23.
Yeah.
20.
Yeah, I have it right on the report now. I put that on every month. So you'll see 23 members or clients over 75,000 and 7 over 150,000.
Mhm.
Let's not forget that the clock resets in about 10 days, 11 days.
Okay. Anything further on medical or anything else for Mary Jane? Or the town? Okay. Then I will entertain a motion
That's easy.
to approve the report of expenditures of the town government for May 2022 in the amount of $2,319,641.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Recusals? I will need to recuse myself from any payments to Antonazzi and Associates. Item number 6, receive and take action on the tax collector's recommendation of uncollectibles to be transferred to the suspense list. Mary Jane, I don't know if you wanted to go through this. Oh, sorry, I'll tell you what. It's all right. It's all right. I got
okay.
it.
I didn't know you were going to ask me a
I
question.
looked up and there was an empty chair.
Put the TV back on.
Do we want to let Mr. Petra know that he can leave? if
Yeah,
he'd
I
like to?
actually just looked up at the screen and realized that Mr. Petra is on also. Good evening. How are you, Noel?
I am muted, but sorry. How are you guys?
Very good. So we have gone through the agenda item for the Board of Education reports. Linda adequately, I believe, addressed all of our questions. Do you have anything you'd like to bring to our attention, seeing that you are on?
No, I'm sure Linda did a much more thorough and more professional job than I would do. She really knows the details. She walked me through everything. I have to say, largely, it was a pretty uneventful report. There wasn't anything that really jumped out at me other than our legal fees, which are well over budget due to negotiations and FOIA requests. We had a Ford F-350 that we paid for up front that'll be reimbursed through our capital expenses. But largely, it was a very uneventful month. So if you guys have any specific questions that she didn't answer, I'm happy to answer if I can. But otherwise, I was satisfied with everything that I saw.
Thank you. Well, you are correct that Linda basically alluded to all of that, that you were the reviewer and that it was a very boring report. So
It was pretty boring, yes.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So you were covered pretty well on that. So.
All right, thank you, Linda. You're the best. Appreciate it.
But just want to make sure I acknowledge the fact, thank you, Jeff, that you were on the screen there and part of the meeting.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Noel. Okay, for item number 6, there is a memo that was part of our package tonight, dated May 18th, addressed to us from Deb Milano, tax collector, again regarding the recommendation of uncollectible taxes to be transferred to suspense for 2020, for the 2020 grand list. The total to be transferred, as recommended, is, to suspense is $70,514.26. They were broken up. I didn't go by percentages, but personal property was about $24,600, motor vehicle $35,700, and motor vehicle supplemental about $10,200. And the backup to all of that is attached as well. as far as all the items that are being asked to be put to suspense. Anybody have any questions? Mary Jane, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I do. I just like to add each year that although we move things to suspense because we're allowed to do so, the tax collector's office never stops trying to bring in that revenue, and you see that in your detail. We do have a line for suspense, and it shows that we still try to recoup that money. It just moves it to the side, and it doesn't go against our percentage of collection rate for the year, but it doesn't mean that we don't forgive the tax. We just move it to a different section of the balance sheet.
Right. Okay. And usually, it's happened every year, or happens every year. There's always some taxes that need to be suspended. So.
Yeah, I just like to make sure that people understand that it's not forgiven.
Right. Thank you.
I'm curious, do we sell tax liens when we have taxes that are owed?
We sell we put liens on for taxes. I don't know if we sell I don't believe we sell liens.
Okay.
We don't sell liens, but we do sell property. We go to tax sales on property. Quite honestly, we haven't done it in a couple of years, which is a little unusual. We did it the first couple of years I was in this role, but we haven't had one since that point.
Okay. Anything further? Otherwise, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the tax collector's recommendation of uncollectible taxes totaling $70,514.26 be transferred to the suspense list.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Great, thank you. Item number 7, committee reports, building permits. Anything on building permits? Okay. Didn't think so.
They may be fewer, but they are mighty.
Yep.
Well, I have one question.
Sure, go ahead.
We've had higher building fees for a little while now. Everybody.
The activity level is through the roof. It's largely volume. Now, there's also, as Bob just mentioned, there's a couple of big ones coming through. 405 Whitfield Street, which I know Mr. Chairman drives by it every day. There are rumors that they've pre-sold some of those, there are 12 units. They pre-sold them for somewhere between $2.5 and $3 million. So they're 4 stories, and they're being built very, very luxuriously. So the permit fees associated with that project alone are going to be substantial. So.
When you move.
When I hit lotto.
So I will note, if you look on your revenue report, the building department is at 143% of their budget. We did adjust the budget in the upcoming year to represent the new fees, but they've brought in $250,000 over their budget because of the new fees.
Yeah, I saw that, and that's great. I was just wondering if I know when we were contemplating making the adjustment to the building permit fees, the question was raised, I may have raised it, we were going to get any pushback, and the sense was that a lot of the builders and the professionals out there were wondering what took us so long to get to do that.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. I was on the subcommittee, and that is exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no pushback. And
no pushback.
That's good.
Oh, and I think last Wednesday, the zoning commission just approved a 48-unit housing complex on Route 1 West, known as Strawberry Hollow. It's tucked in across the street from Strawberry Hollow. So a 48-unit, mostly 2-bedroom. I think it's all 2-bedroom places. So, and there are, as I think I've recounted before, there are 3 or 4 other significant housing projects that are currently in some form of application or discussion with our land use agencies. So,
that's encouraging to see, aside from the growth to the grand list, but also a number of those projects address are designed to address smaller affordable housing and smaller 1 and 2 bedroom units, which there's a shortage of those type of facilities throughout the town, so.
You're absolutely right. For those who were brave enough to sit through the affordable housing public hearing that we had a little while ago, one of the key takeaways is we don't have enough 2 or 3 bedroom homes, for rental or for home ownership at not necessarily purely affordable housing, but below what traditional housing is in Guilford. So workforce housing, I think, is probably closer to the name we want to use.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, and tomorrow we have a ribbon cutting over at the Green Hill, or Green Plant, again, Chris Widmer's project on State Street, just above the highway, where there are 10 units of affordable housing going in there, which are home ownership as opposed to rental. So
No, it's good. There's definitely a need for it.
there is, no question.
Yeah, finally moving forward on all that.
Pardon me?
Finally moving forward on all that. I mean,
Wow.
it took a little bit of time, but now it's happening.
Greater.
No, for what it's worth from the peanut gallery, I think this is not only the right thing to do, the way that we approach this, but it's the smart thing to do in the long run. We need a diversity of housing types, and this is exactly what we should be doing. So I appreciate everything that our town has done on this level. Thank you.
Thank you, Noel.
Thank you. Item number 8, old business. There were 2 items that I did want to bring up. One is that we did have a facilities tour of several of our Board of Finance members. I don't think all of us could make it. I don't remember who did or didn't, but most of us were there. And we did get on a shuttle bus and toured all of the facilities. I know that I will just state the obvious, that there was some expectation that it was going to go longer. I think some of us were appreciative of the fact that the day was shorter than a 4-hour day. But it wasn't, I think it was probably about an hour that we drove around and looked at all the facilities. I do want to point out that it was stated by the Facilities Committee Chairman, Gary McElhenney, that although we didn't get out and tour and look at every single facility that the town has, that we have the opportunity as a board to go whenever we would like to, whether it's Public Works, whether it's the fire department, police station, wherever we feel that we need to take a closer look or look at the facilities, we have an open door to go look at those facilities. So I just want to make sure that was on, we had that tour on May 23rd, which was a week after our last Board of Finance meeting. Anybody have anything else they want to share regarding that or comment on regarding the tour? And
Yeah.
Bob, and I do want to thank Bob for organizing it with Gary. And we postponed it for a week so you could be there and
Yeah,
add any insight.
and we all got lunch.
And we all got lunch. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much.
There's no beer on the bus.
No, there was there was not.
No,
There was water. We were hydrated. There was definitively hydrated.
yeah.
I would just comment that we appreciate that you did it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, longer, shorter, we still got a ride around.
We-
We
yeah.
got the 2-cent comments and the nickel tour.
And we should acknowledge Stephen Neidorf, who gave his time and.
Thank you. Yes.
And,
Very good point.
and information.
Yeah. It was good to really to get a tour of all the facilities. I mean, maybe we didn't go in them, but we certainly got an idea of where they all are and some of the challenges they all had. There was a lot of commentary that Gary and or Steve had regarding each of the facilities. So
That would be what I would comment on that I thought was helpful, was the commentary by, in particular, Steve Neidorf on the process that he goes through when addressing maintenance needs in any of our buildings. I found that to be very helpful.
I think it'll enlighten us more when it comes to capital projects and all the town buildings and all the challenges. When Steve comes before us, actually comes before the Board of Selectmen during the workshops, and what the needs are and challenges. So, the second item was just, I guess, an update on the police department basketball courts. We brought it up last month, so figured, I know there's been some movement on that, so, or,
If I were a betting man, and usually I only bet on the 3 Triple Crown races, I would suggest that we're getting pretty close to a decision that we will not be taking up those basketball courts, that we'll be able to satisfy the demand for additional storage elsewhere on the property. As you guys may recall from the capital budget presentation in December of 2020, I know that's a long time ago. Not everybody was on the board at that point, but both the fire department and police department came in with separate capital projects. We're back to looking at those 2 projects separately. The fire department has the capacity to add 2 bays on the north end of the fire department's current building. In fact, that was contemplated at the time that building was designed and built. So they stubbed out all the mechanicals on the north side so that it would be easy enough to add additional capacity on that side. Police department's a little more of a challenge because we had nothing in place relative to landscape or architecture or how it would fit in place. The police department and commission are looking to engage professional services to help them lay out, fully identify what they need for the storage, and then try to fit that on the balance of the property that's up there. But I will warn this board that we've had discussions, and I actually had a tour of the facility on Thursday last. There is some concern for equity in terms of facilities at the police department, particularly as it relates to female officers. The locker room facility is significantly smaller than that for their counterparts. And in fact, they have 1 shower, they have 1 bathroom stall as opposed to multiple showers and stalls in the men's room. So there is a acknowledged need to address that, particularly since the Police Commission has adopted sort of a statewide initiative, which is called 30 by 30, which is having 30% of police force being composed of female officers. We're not far away. We're in, I think, the low 20s. But I had the opportunity to look at their locker room facility and look at the men's locker room facility. So there's a clear and demonstrated need that we need to do something. So how do we fit all of that together with additional space needs for storage and expansion of those kind of facilities? It's something that may take a little more time. But as I said, if I were a betting man, I'd say the basketball courts will be there. And we hopefully, as I announced when I put the task force together, that task force may never have to meet.
Great news, and on the basketball courts, so that's great.
That's right.
As far as all the other news,
there'll be no
there's
more
some
pitchforks
challenges,
in front of town hall.
Great, that's good, very good news. Anything further on either of those 2 items or any additional old business?
Mimi?
Gotcha. Go ahead, Mary Jane.
While you were having that discussion, I looked up the fire department's training facility, and we had a $537,000 budget, of which $534,000 has already been spent. So I would consider that project substantially complete, with just a few more punch list items to go.
Perfect. Thank you, Mary Jane. Much appreciated. Okay. Anything further on old business? Item number 9, new business. I looked right at you.
I know you did.
I had a feeling.
I know you did.
Mr. First.
Thank you. Sorry to delay this meeting, which is usually one of the shortest of the year. You're right.
Go ahead.
At the Board of Selectmen meeting this morning, we had a presentation from the Waste Transfer Advisory Commission and Janice Blasiak, our town engineer, who is responsible for management of the waste transfer station. At this morning's meeting, the board voted unanimously to increase the tipping fee from $7 to $9 per 100 pounds. The last time that the rates had been adjusted was 2004. So they have survived, we have survived, well, we haven't really survived. We continue to have a deficit. Both communities contribute, I think, $85,000 as a baseline to operate the facility. We have, over the past number of years, as you guys are probably familiar, we have had to subsidize that with additional funds from both communities. So this is designed to try to get us back to covering the basic operating expenses or eliminating the deficit beyond the annual contribution from both communities. There was discussion at the board meeting this morning, as well as in the committee or the commission, as to going, maybe stepping it, do a year at 8 and then a year at 9. But the prevailing thought was, since there hasn't been an increase since 2004, and meanwhile, everyone who uses a private hauler has probably had at least a 40% increase in that time, if not significantly more. So the approval was made this morning at the Board of Selectmen meeting, and I'll entertain any questions on that if you
When
have.
is that effective?
It'll be effective August 1st.
Got to make a couple dump runs before then.
That was the PSA to get.
Yeah, that's right.
To make your
That's
runs
right.
by July
Suggestion.
1st.
Is that
That's it for me.
Is that intended to, that's intended to make up the complete shortfall, just reduce it? Like,
That is the shortfall in the operating expenses net of the contributions made by the town,
Okay.
which is $170,000 each year.
okay. So that
And also
that will balance it out.
some of the soft costs that we absorb
Mm-hmm.
as a town, Janice's time, her assistant's time, in terms of managing that facility. We are reimbursed for some of the finance department's activities in terms of keeping the books. That's clearly stated in the agreement between the town of Guilford and the town of Madison, which I believe was put together in like 1983 or 1985, somewhere around there.
I just wanted, does Madison need to sign off on that, or?
Interestingly enough, no. However, in the spirit of cooperation, I did have conversations with First Selectwoman Lyons in Madison, and she is completely in agreement, because the committee is comprised of representatives from both towns. There are 3 representatives from Madison, 3 from Guilford, and it was a unanimous recommendation from that commission that we needed to do something. It had been long enough, so I believe First Selectman Lyons is going to inform her board tomorrow at their meeting.
The site gets an awful lot of use, so I mean, I think it's.
Pardon me?
I don't think you're going to get any complaints. I mean,
I'm
about
sure-
the increase. I mean, I'm sure you will, but
Yeah, we'll get
given
some.
given the length of time
Right.
that it's been since the last increase,
Yeah.
you know.
Well,
you've had-
there's an interesting perspective to look at this. You know, for those of us, and I'm one of them, who use a private hauler, right? Effectively, we've seen the increases over those years, and we've been absorbing the cost in our taxes of the deficits that are happening because we're not charging a fair rate for the dropping in our transfer station. The commission also did an evaluation of the cost for private haulers, and the average price per week on the couple of the haulers they worked out was $9.60 per week for pickup. Now, theoretically, you can get more than 100 pounds, but on average, those who go to the waste transfer station are still going to pay less than they would if they had a private hauler.
That's good.
More than you wanted to know, but sorry.
No.
No, that's actually good information to know. Really good. Okay. Any other new business? Okay. Item 10, public forum. And hearing none, just after 8:30, almost made it, but.
I'm sorry.
But we took our time. There was no rush through the meeting, so we got everything accomplished. So it's all good. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.